This is the Sony a7 IV, this is the Sony a7S III, and if you film weddings or documentaries or other videos like that, you're probably wondering which one of these two cameras should you buy? Hey, my name is Matt Johnson, and today I want to break down the differences between these two cameras and help you figure out which one you should purchase for your filmmaking. And also, before we get started, if you have bought either of these cameras and you're wanting to get it set up as fast as possible with the best settings for video, I have setup guides for both of these cameras, as well as setup preset files that you can download and immediately install to get your cameras set up and working properly. I will link to those videos up in the corner and down in the video description. Jumping right into it then, the first thing that you're going to notice when you look at these two cameras is that their size, weight, and body style are both incredibly similar. Heck, looking at the front of these cameras, you can't even tell really which one is which other than the label. You have to look at the top to find the new mode dial and locking exposure wheel on the a7 IV, or you can take the lens off and see that the a7 IV will actually close the shutter now when the camera's turned off to prevent dust from getting on the sensor. These are all great improvements, especially that closed shutter, but they aren't dramatically different. And this is a good thing, because Sony did a really great job with the a7S III, and I think that it has a great body style for the a7 IV to emulate. The similarity between these two cameras continues when you turn them on, where you're presented with nearly the exact same menu system and interface. To be clear, Sony has added a few new features which we're going to talk about, but for the most part, it's all very similar. So what are the big differences then? Well, by far, the most noticeable difference is going to come with everyone's favorite word, megapixels. Yes, while the a7S III only has a 12 megapixel full-frame sensor, the a7 IV has a much higher 33 megapixel full-frame sensor. While people typically think of megapixels really only applying to photo, not video, and we are focusing on video features in this video, there are two things that I would keep in mind in regards to megapixels. First, and most obvious, is that if you're a photographer that dabbles in video and you typically find yourself printing out very large resolution images, in that case, I would definitely recommend the a7 IV, as those megapixels are definitely going to help you. Second, and lesser known though, is that these extra megapixels on the a7 IV even help filmmakers, because whenever you film in 4K at 24 or 30 frames per second, the a7 IV will actually use those extra megapixels to internally oversample the video from 7K to 4K resolution, which means the a7 IV is actually going to be sharper and look a bit better than footage filmed with the a7S III. Likewise, if you film in 4K at 60 frames per second, this will be oversampled from 4.8K, which is still a slight bump in quality. To be clear, you're not going to see a huge difference in image quality between these two cameras. They're both very good, so I would not base your purchase decision around this, but it is a nice bonus that I want you to be aware of. Sticking on this resolution train now, and speaking of frame rates, we do need to talk about another area where the a7 IV and a7S III are quite different, and that is in regards to high frame rate video. If you're filming at 24 or 30 frames per second, these two cameras are basically the same. But once you decide you want to film in higher frame rates, they diverge quickly, with the biggest difference being that whenever you switch to 60 frames per second, the a7S III will keep right on truckin' with its full frame sensor, but the a7 IV, on the other hand, is going to add a 1.5 times crop to your footage. This is definitely significantly tighter, and you're going to need to use wider lenses to compensate if you oftentimes find yourself filming in 4K at 60 FPS. As for why Sony did this, there are multiple theories out there, including that Sony wanted to weaken the video capabilities of the a7 IV a little bit so filmmakers would spend more money on the a7S III. But I really think that it all came down to Sony wanting to put those extra megapixels in the a7 IV, and then they were possibly not able to hit the heat levels and price that they wanted to hit to include 4K 60. Wrapping up things in regards to frame rate, one of the biggest differences between the a7S III and a7 IV is that the a7 IV maxes out at 4K at 60 frames per second, while the a7S III can go even higher and record 4K at up to 120 frames per second. If you're someone that loves filming in super slow motion, going with the a7S III is a great choice over the a7 IV. In addition, the a7S III is also capable of recording in 1080p at up to 240 frames per second, while the a7 IV is limited to 1080p at up to 120 FPS. So you're going to get extra slow motion in 1080p with the a7S III. And lastly, the a7 IV does have worse rolling shutter than the a7S III, most likely due to that much higher resolution 33 megapixel sensor. So if you're someone that films super shaky handheld all the time, the a7S III is the better choice. These frame rate and resolution differences aside though, I do want to make it very clear that from a video quality standpoint, the a7 IV and a7S III are still quite similar, with both having the capability of recording very high quality 10-bit video with the same exact bit rates, formats, and picture profiles like S-Log3. The video quality is similar enough between these two cameras that it will be virtually impossible for anyone to tell which of the two of them you filmed with, especially if you mix your footage. I've done it, and to my eye, they look the same. That said though, there is a bit of a difference between these two cameras in how they handle low light. I say a bit because the a7S III is still very clearly the low light king, but the a7S III doesn't really begin to outperform the a7 IV until you get above ISO 25,600 or so. Meaning that if you don't commonly find yourself going above that ISO, you can feel confident filming with either one of these cameras in darker conditions. There's also a difference in how these cameras handle memory cards, which will affect you if you're someone that likes to dual record your videos to multiple memory cards so you do not lose your video in the event of a card failure. I always recommend dual recording. The difference is that while the a7S III has 2 memory card slots that work with both SD cards and CF Express Type A cards, the a7 IV, on the other hand, has 1 slot that can take SD and CF Express, and another slot that is only capable of taking SD cards. This means that if you want to dual record to 2 memory cards, which, as I said, I highly recommend, you are going to need to use 2 SD cards, not 2 CF Express cards. Thankfully, the majority of bit rates and resolutions are all going to be recordable to SD cards on the a7 IV, so you don't really need to worry about using CF Express. But if you're interested in knowing exactly what memory cards you should buy and which memory cards will work with every setting of the camera, I have memory card guide videos for both the a7 IV and a7S III that I will link to in the corner and down in the video description for you to watch. Talking pros of the a7 IV over the a7S III here for a second, Sony did add 4 cool new features to the a7 IV that aren't on the a7S III. These being animal eye detect autofocus for video, focus breathing compensation for lenses, a focus map to help with manual focus, and a variable anti-flicker mode. So if you film animals often, you're going to love the animal eye detect. And if you use Sony lenses that have a lot of focus breathing, like the 35mm GM, the focus breathing compensation feature on the a7 IV is going to be something that you're going to want to have turned on all the time, and it's pretty magical. Also, if you use manual focus, you may get some use out of the focus map. Lastly, if you find yourself filming in a lot of low light conditions where there are a lot of flickering lights, that anti-flicker feature is really nice to have. So these are 4 great features that I'm hoping and dreaming that one day Sony may add to the a7S III, but I don't necessarily think that they make the a7 IV a must-buy over the S3. That is, unless you exclusively film animals, at which point, go for the animal eye detect. Now, there is one big difference that we need to talk about in regards to these two cameras, and that is in regards to overheating. While both the a7S III and a7 IV both have the same passive cooling system inside, because the a7 IV has a higher megapixel sensor that requires more processing, it is more susceptible to overheating than the a7S III. When I tested the a7S III, I was able to leave it outside in the blazing 100+ degree Texas heat, and it would record in 4K at 60 frames per second indefinitely. With the a7 IV, on the other hand, while I personally have not been able to make it overheat when filming with it, I've heard reports from other filmmakers that they have experienced overheating with the camera, so if that's a concern for you, I would definitely look into buying an a7S III, or if you really want to guarantee that you won't overheat even in 4K at 120 FPS, go for the FX3. Wrapping up this comparison then, let's talk about the price between these two cameras, which is definitely something important to consider. At the time of making this video, the a7S III is selling for $3,500, while the a7 IV is significantly cheaper at $2,500. As we've just talked about in this entire video, there are definitely some differences between these two cameras, but they also have a ton in common as well. Which means that the question that it all comes down to is the Sony a7S III worth $1,000 more than the a7 IV? That decision is going to be ultimately up to you and your budget. But if it was me, having used both of these cameras and loved them, here's what I would do. If you are just getting started as a filmmaker and you are building out your kit and you still have a lot to buy, like lenses, tripods, gimbals, etc., in that case, I think saving $1,000 and going for the a7 IV is a great choice, especially whenever you consider that you're getting very similar picture quality between these two cameras. Likewise, if you find yourself doing a mix of photo and video, in that case, I think that the a7 IV is a fantastic all-around photo and video camera that I would go with as well. But if you focus primarily on filmmaking and you want to record high frame rate videos with amazing low light performance, I still think that the a7S III is completely worth it, and this is personally the camera that I use day to day. With that, thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about Sony cameras, I have a lot of videos about Sony, which I will link to down in the video description. In addition, if you use your camera to film weddings, which I know that I've touched on a bit in this video, I would love to help you out even more. So I've created a free guide called Level Up Your Wedding Films. If you want to improve the quality of your films and get more bookings, regardless of which camera you are using, this guide is going to show you some of the biggest and most important things you can do when creating wedding films. You can download it for free at the link down below. Also down below, I will link to my color presets, which work amazingly with both the a7S III and a7 IV. I've tested them extensively and they look great. And as a plus, they work regardless of whether you are filming in a standard picture profile or an S-Log 3. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.